Ladies and gentlemen, it is I, Rito Tsukiyo, and I sincerely hope that you've enjoyed your time off, because WTTA Training Academy is back with another session, this time a lesson on split pushing, so let's dive right into it. What is split pushing? Split pushing is a strategy in League of Legends where one or two members from any team split away from their team and push an alternative lane. While it seems simple in execution, an effective split push can accomplish a variety of goals. Number 1. Redistributing pressure across the map. By exerting pressure in another lane, you threaten objectives within that lane, forcing the enemy team to allocate a team member or more in order to respond to your presence or suffer the loss of towers. Number 2. Through pressure distribution, your team gains a temporary numbers advantage. It is imperative that a split pushing champion has either teleport or an ability that functions similar to it. This enables you to exert pressure elsewhere, but it gives you the ability to rendezvous with your team, manufacturing a 4v5 scenario in your favor. However, if the enemy responding also has TP or a global ultimate, they can match your movements. Number 3. Dissuading the enemy team from securing specific objectives for free and sometimes at all. Examples include, but are not limited to, taking top lane tier 2 in exchange for your bottom lane tier 2, or, in the event that your team is too weak to directly contest a mid-game dragon, you could trade that for an opposing tower. All in all, split pushing forces your opponents to think twice under pressure on how to best allocate their team members. How you abuse this pressure is largely up to circumstance. It's important to note that there are two types of split pushing compositions: the 4-1 split, which involves one member shoving a lane and leaving his team as a 4-man squad, and then there is the 1-3-1, which involves a double split push, leaving the remaining 3 members to function as a smaller squad. Don't do anything too fancy until you learn the basic 4-1. Now that we better understand what split pushing accomplishes, let's review some of the basic criteria to account for whenever you're considering to split push within a game. So, when should I split push? Number 1. Whenever we have a reliable global presence like TP or an ability similar to it. Global pressure is imperative for a successful split push, as it allows you to maintain the pressure elsewhere on the map, but also have an immediate way to reunite with your team in the event of a Baron contest or a team fight. Without it, your team is always a man down. Number 2. Whenever you can maintain a safe level of vision. Vision is always important, just as much so while you're shoving down an alternative lane. As you push into the fog of war, illuminating your surroundings as you go can alert you of incoming flanks or threats of any kind. Knowing what's approaching before it comes helps you either escape, fight properly, or if you're unable to flee, waste their time as effectively as possible. Number 3. If your team composition is self-sufficient in holding their own as a 4 or 3-man squadron. Consider the champions on your team. Do they have enough of a tank line to defend themselves? Do any of your teammates have reliable sources of wave clear to prevent an enemy dive? If not, it may be less beneficial to split push, but even this will vary based upon circumstance. Number 4. To split up the enemy team. In the event that your team has an inferior 5v5, it is possible to force the opposition to divide this way. Bearing in mind that this criteria is important to split pushing success, nothing in League of Legends is at a constant. From game to game, the relative success of split pushing is determined by ever-changing variables. This will become more evident as you go through the motions of split pushing. After listing all of the essential factors that one must consider before split pushing, we come to this point where it's necessary to understand who should be split pushing. It's rather obvious at this point that global presence is a driving factor, so let's investigate who can best match our rubric. Who should split push? Typically, top laners with some source of global presence. Since taking teleport on top laners has been more or less a standard for a long time, it becomes evident that they are the prime candidate to receive the green light. Champions such as Nasus, Fiora, and Tryndamere have such massive dual potential that they demand multiple enemies answer their push. Shen is also a great option as he can ult defensively onto an ally to rejoin his team. Mid laners, who can also make use of teleport, and of course, Twisted Fate. The same global pressure concept applies. Twisted Fate excels at this in particular due to his ultimate. Other champions who could split push well consist of, but aren't limited to, Lissandra, Kassadin, and Lulu. They each have a source of mobility and great wave clear. Lastly, specific junglers who take TP or have a global ultimate. So prime examples of this would be Rek'Sai or Pantheon, because their ultimates allow them to get from point A to point B relatively quickly. And some of these junglers will also delight themselves on taking TP on champions such as Master Yi, who excels at wave clear and has 1v1 potential that is incredible later on in the game, making him an exceptional candidate. Speaking of exceptional, there are a few champions who deviate from the global presence rule that we've established. This is usually because of their high duel potential and sometimes because of high mobility. Therefore, they're under less threat when they're split pushing. Some prime examples include, but are not limited to, Zed, Yasuo, and Vladimir. It's important to note, after mentioning exceptions to the global presence rule, we also highlight an inopportune moment to split push. If an objective like Baron is under threat of being secured by the enemy team, do not split push if you lack any source of global presence, especially if you are the jungler, because the enemy will secure the Baron, and there's no way for you to get there in time, and there is no smite contest. The same holds true for 5th Dragon. Our final major facet regarding split pushing are the two major items that allow you to accomplish the same goal without being physically present in another lane, so it simulates split pushing without you being there. The first item is Banner of Command. Its active empowers a minion and makes it invulnerable to magic damage. This would be ideal more so against a team made primarily of magic damage, as the minion would be immune to this. Its uses may vary, but it can shove another lane while your team focuses their attention elsewhere. It also gives MR to the owner, and an aura that grants a small boost in MR to nearby allies. The second item is a ZZ Rot Portal. The active drops a Void Gate at a target location, birthing Void Spawn, which will travel down the nearest lane, attacking minions and then exploding onto enemy structures in its path. This item is a great way to force push a lane similar to Banner of Command. However, this item gives both armor and magic resistance. To the owner, this makes it a viable option against teams regardless of how much AD or AP that they might have. Items aside, we've covered the bare necessities and criteria regarding split pushing. However, how should one behave if you're not the one doing the split pushing? Besides acknowledging that you're a man down, standard procedure and complementing the split in pressure work well. So, number 1, don't get caught out or drawn into a 5v4. Number 2, maintain high levels of vision to keep tabs on enemy movements. This will keep your team and your split pushers safe. Number 3, pressure another lane or objective, but respect the threat level of your opponents. By forcing your opponents to choose between those two areas of pressure, you can oftentimes get them to make a mistake or give up an objective for free. Looks like we've covered all of the essentials and the basics that are involved with split pushing. Be sure to review as many times as you need. In fact, let's go over a brief summary. Number 1. Split pushing is a strategic element of the game involving a player shoving an alternative lane away from their own team. It can redistribute pressure, splinter the enemy, and gain advantages via objectives. Number 2. Usually you'd split push as long as you have a source of global pressure, with some minor exceptions. You must ward and be map aware, and be sure that your team is safe as a 4-man unit. Number 3. Items such as Banner of Command and ZZ Rot Portal can assist you in your split pushing endeavor by simulating split pushing in lanes that you will not have to be physically present in to get them going. Number 4. If you aren't the one split pushing, be safe, communicate, and target objectives away from the person split pushing. Now that all the core concepts have been exposed and flushed out thoroughly, the only thing left to do is to take it to the Rift. Be sure to practice split pushing in a safe environment first, maybe with friends in a normal game so you don't jeopardize your rank, and as time moves on, you will adjust to this strategic element and you'll be able to increase your skill cap and take way more liberties with it. That's all for Wood Tier Training Academy's lesson on split pushing. I am Rito Tsukiyo signing out until next time.